Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to Research Methods. We've been talking about literature review, and in the last class, before my power went off, I spoke to you about how we can easily use the literature review matrix table to generate the content for our literature review section, which is chapter 2 of the research work. So I'm going to be using this as an example. So for this group, they are marketing students, and you can see that they have the author, the country or context, key variables, objective and research questions, theories, frameworks, or models, methodology, which should include research approach, population sample and research design, data collection tools, analysis, key findings, and recommendations for future research. Just to make sure we understand the context. Ladies and gentlemen, you should always indicate your topic, because without a topic, I cannot assess whether the papers that you've gone to work on actually fit the study you want to do. So those in group 12, marketing, what topic are you dealing with? What topic are you dealing with for which you have these literature review matrix? Stephen, Eden, Abofo, Diana Boateng, Alphonse, William Seydoux. Why are you 9 when I said you should be 7? Anyways. William, Mante, Rachel, Ajay, Paul, Wakan, Angela Champon, Sefako, and Samuel Asari. What topic are you dealing with? So I'm to understand that all these 9 students are absent from today's class. Is that the understanding? Okay. So since the students are all absent and will be marked absent appropriately, let's carry on. So if you see from the table, I don't know what their topic is, but I would guess it might be about social media marketing. Now, how many, what is the structure of chapter 2? After your introduction, what should you have? After introduction, what comes next? After writing introduction, what comes next in the list of things for chapter 2?
Yeah, Madam, please, the conceptual review.
Okay. So for the conceptual review, we are going to use these 2 sections, the information here. to populate your conceptual review. So I'm guessing that their topic is about social media marketing. And they're also looking at social media marketing, MSME, growth and performance. I'm guessing based on the information here. So you need to define online marketing, social media marketing. Decide which of the two terminologies you are using. And then you'll be quoting these people as the source of information for that conceptual review section. You are also going to have to define SMEs and define the scope and scale of SMEs. So the conceptual review will be built from these two columns in the literature review matrix. The conceptual review, the next section you are supposed to write is what?
Pardon, please, the theoretical review or the theoretical framework.
Thank you. So this column right here will give you the information you need. So now we see resource-based view, technology acceptance model, diffusion of technology theory. Let's see, we have one count of each so far. We also see term. So term is showing up twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm struggling to scroll down, but it looks like the dominant theory is TAM, which is the technological acceptance model. I also see self-qual, I see resource-based view. So in this section for the theoretical review section, you need to let us know. So for example, you could say, in studies that try to look at social media marketing and its impact on SMEs growth in Ghana over the last 20 years, the most dominant theories appear to be technology acceptance model. Then you put into brackets all the citations. So Boatin and Echo 2015. Then you look for the next term study. Hinson and Boatin 2007. Odum 2017. So you see, as you weave the narrative, you use the information from the table as your language for presenting your review of the literature. So like I was saying, you can say that over the last 20 years, there appears to be maybe 3 dominant frameworks for understanding the nexus or the relationship between social media marketing and MSME performance in the Ghanaian context. The most popular appears to be technological acceptance model term, as evidenced by the works of Henson and Boat in 2007, Odum 2017. You list them. The next in order, or the next most popular framework appears to be the resource-based view, as evidenced by the work of Mahmoud 2018. Let's see who else. So you get the drift. You use the language from the table. I don't know why my cursor will not move. Arbor and Corte. I think it was 2010. Yes. And then who else we have? Mahmoud 2018, etc., etc. Then you can say third in line appears to be the IMC, as evidenced by the work of Jomo 2019, and you name the others. Duvidi 2020. The technology acceptance model was advocated by, so the person whose idea it was. You mentioned that person's name or those people's names in their work written in maybe the year 1986. The model describes the ways in which technology is accepted by different businesses. The model has 4 or 5 parts. They are X, Y, and Z. This model has been used in computing, in economics, in social studies, and in business. So you weave the narrative based on what you find from what has been written about the theory and how it has been used. The term has been critiqued for being X, for being Y, for being Z. In response to these critiques, alternative models such as the resource-based model were proposed. RBV comes from the discipline of economics. I'm just making this up, but I'm just trying to teach you the language to use. So RBV comes from the discipline of wherever we find it comes from. It has been variously used to describe how resource-constrained contexts use whatever resources they have. The seminal work or the first work was done in this year by these people in this country, blah, blah, blah. The parts of the theory are as follows. Then you describe the theory itself. Then you talk about any other relevant details of the theory as will make sense to your work. Then the next thing will be for you to talk about its weaknesses or deficiencies or critiques. And then you mention the third one, same structure. After you do all that, then you have to let us know which of them you are using for this work. So for the purposes of this study, based on the objectives, which are to X, Y, and Z, the most suited theoretical lens for this study will be, so then you make your choice there and you justify why based on the objectives that you are working with. After you've told the reader the one you have chosen, then you can move to the next section, which should be the empirical review section. Does it make sense so far from conceptual to theoretical? And how you use it to write, to give you the content to write these sections. So the empirical, which part of the table will you get data to write the empirical review section? I told you this last week, so you should be able to tell me. Which columns will you use to write the empirical? Which columns of the literature review matrix will you use to populate the empirical review section?
Madam, please, from the key findings.
Where else?
Methodology and data collection
Madam,
tools.
please, objectives.
What objectives, please? So from
Methodology and data
methodology, data collection, analysis, key findings, and recommendations for future research. So if you look at it critically, The first three will help you write conceptual review. The second will help you write theoretical review. The last set will help you write the empirical review. Now, in the empirical review, you need to talk about methodology, data collection, analysis, findings, and future research. So let's look at, they should have talked about approach first before they come to population, sample, and design. Now this first study, they are saying cross-sectional, so they are saying survey, and they are using questionnaires, so I will guess that it is quantitative. This one says descriptive, questionnaire, and interview, so it has to be mixed methods. So let me put that information there. Right now we have 1 quanti, 1 mixed, 2 quanti. This is conceptual, doesn't count. 3 quanti, 4 quanti. This is also quanti, so 5 quanti. Survey questionnaire, 6 quanti, 7 quanti, 8 quanti, 9 quanti, 10 quanti. Survey, 11 quanti, 12. So 12, 13, 14. Mixed methods, this is the second one. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Spelling of survey is wrong. 22, 23, 24, 25. So nobody saw that the spelling of survey is wrong. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So we can confidently say that within the Ghanaian context, most of the studies that have looked at social media marketing vis-a-vis SMEs appear to prefer quantitative methodologies, with questionnaires being the dominant data collection tool, with regression analysis being the preferred technique. The sample size seems to be between 160 SMEs to 300, which seems to be the biggest number. So now, anytime, the way I've spoken right now, this sentence can end with all the respective authors and year as a reference for these studies. So for example, Abo and Corte 2010 clearly use quanti, sample size 200. Boatin and Oko, they use mixed method. So once you have indicated that the most dominant methodology appears to be quantitative, you cite all the quantitative studies that you can. If you cite, let's say, 5 from the 36 that we have counted, it is strong enough. So that in other bits of the work, when you are talking about how quantitative studies have been used, you can use other examples or other names so that you don't keep repeating the same author and year, so that there's variety. So the first 5 can be used to support the assertion that the dominant research approach appears to be quantitative. You can list 5 or 6 of them to support that statement. They are using cross-sectional design and structured questionnaires and using regression analysis. So you can list another different set of 5 or 6 quantitative studies to support that. The sample sizes range from 160 SMEs, then you put into brackets 150. So you put in brackets Wharton and Oko 2015 to 300. Then you quote the one. Oh, no, you can't quote this one because this one is for mixed methods. So you look for the Quanti one. The Quanti one, yes, ENIM 2015 up to 300. So the lowest for Quanti seems to be, I think I saw 160 somewhere. 160, and the largest seems to be 300. Okay, Henson, Wharton 180. Let's see. Yes, 160. A J 2021. So as you can tell, the table is giving you the information you need to populate and write your section. So we are speaking about the dominant approach. Then you can talk about other studies, or a few studies appear to favor mixed methods, such as Boateng and Co 2015, who used a combination of questionnaires and interview to collect data from 150 respondents. And then you can now talk about the analysis. The dominant analysis appears to be correlation and regression, with others using structural equation modeling, such as that of ENIM 2015. So anything you say, you need to support it with the author and the year, so we know that you know what you are talking about and you are not making things up. Key findings from the quantitative studies appear to indicate the effectiveness of technology in improving MSME competitiveness. Then you can list the studies that seem to point to these key findings. So you need to go through all the key findings and find out the commonality or the common denominator in all of them. Now, this column for future research, you will use it as justification for your current study. So this is why it is always a good idea to even do this activity before you finalize your topic, because then you can use this column to say that 80% of studies reviewed, or 80% of the 60 studies reviewed, indicated that most studies called for comparative studies across different industries, as most of the SMEs that were reviewed in previous studies seem to be in maybe the fashion industry. Thus, my study, or this current study, seeks to examine social media marketing in SMEs in the agric business sector, responding to the call by studies such as Boateng and Oko 2015 and Abo and Kote 2010. So this is how you use this section to give you the language to say that your study is justified. Your study is actually needed because it is arising out of the gaps or the deficiencies from previous research. That is the strongest way to demonstrate, even in your problem statement, that your study is important and it is needed. If you look at this one, Odum said that we should look at rural SMEs. So then you can make the argument that, and look for other studies that have been done in urban areas. So unlike other studies done, or the review indicated that most studies around this topic have been done using MSMEs in urban areas. However, Odum 2017 called for the use of called for the use of rural SMEs because most 90%, or let's say 60% of businesses exist in the rural areas or peri-urban areas. Therefore, this current study will take place in maybe Asokore Mampong, which is, I'm just making this up, which is a rural agrarian based economy with 50 registered as MSMEs. And then you put the citation of Odum there, you put the citation to support the 50 MSMEs and any other citation to support what you are saying. So does it make sense how this table will now translate into the chapter 2 and even parts of chapter 1? And we use information for this table also in chapter 4. When you are doing your discussion, when we get to chapter 4, hopefully by the end of this lecture, I'll show you how this same table can help you write the chapter 4 and write it well. Does it make sense so far? Do we understand how to write chapter 2 and how to use the literature to inform not only chapter 2, but also the topic, chapter 1, especially your problem statement, to refine your objectives and to give you the language to write the work? Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Godfred.
Yes, madam. Thank you very much. Please, I want to ask, does the year of the articles that we are using for your as reference, does it matter? Say, if
Yes,
I'm
it
doing
matters. I've told you before that it matters. I remember saying that if it's not a classical theory, your references should not be older than 5 years from the time you are writing your work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question about literature? Okay, so it's good that everybody understands how to translate the literature review matrix into your chapter 2. So by the end of this week, you are expected to have a fully developed chapter 1 and a fully developed chapter 2. And then you would start working on chapter 3 for submission and grading. So if you did a good job and you didn't use ChatGPT to generate your literature review matrix, you see that writing your chapter 2 and even your problem statement will become very easy for you. You will not struggle. But if you cooked your literature review table, then I am very sorry and I will not be able to help you. So when I am grading your group work, what I will do is that I'll look at your table and then I'll look at the citations and the papers that you cite to see whether they are correlated, meaning that are you talking from the table or you are just talking from the air? And last year, some students thought that I will not mark it, so they did it anyhow and brought it. And then when they saw their grades, they were now disturbing their class reps to come and disturb me. Please, I'm telling you right now that get actual citations and use that to create your table, and then use the table to do the work. It simplifies everything for everybody. Your marks, I will not take you to my house to do anything. So if you do the work, you get the marks. If you don't do the work the way you are expected, you don't get the marks. It is very simple. So don't do the wrong thing and later come and beg. Please, you can ask all the cohorts I've taught over the last 11 years. I don't take students anything to change any mark. You will not even find me to come and bribe me. I don't take bribes. I don't do favors for scores and all those funny things that people would want to do. So I beg you, you have been told what to do. You have been told what is expected. Please do what is expected of you. If you go to the LMS, you see that I have put a very basic sample thesis. This is an undergraduate level thesis, but I have put it there for you as a sample to help you figure out what is expected. So, as you can see in this sample, there's a title. Who can read the title for us so that we all know that we are looking at the same document?
Madam,
Yes.
an exploration of the experiences of consultants in developing countries. A case study in Ghana.
It's case study of Ghana. Okay. So then you see that after that, we have the table of content. You are expected to auto-generate this so that it looks formal and presentable. I don't need to teach this because you are all professionals. So you understand. After your table of content, we want to see your abstract. I've already spoken to you that the abstract is one block. There is no paragraphing. There are no in-text citations in the abstract. It is one block. This is what I mean by it is one block. So I hope we can all see it. The other thing you should note, like the way I taught you, you need one line to give us the premise or the background, one line to talk about your methodology and your objectives or and research questions, one line to give us your major, 1 or 2 lines, talk about your major findings, which I am highlighting here. 1 line or 2 lines to talk about the theory you used to do the work. You can switch the order for the last 2 things I have just shown you. And then recommendations is the last. So this is the arrangement of the information in the abstract. The abstract is the last thing that is written after you finish the entire work. Chapter 1. The name of chapter 1 is introduction. Then you have background. So in the background, we've already talked about what is required. I will not belabor the point. I will move straight away to statement of the problem. As we have just seen, the statement of the problem must come from the literature. And so in this particular statement of the problem, we are looking at experiences of consultants in Ghana. And it talks about the fact that while consulting has become a global phenomenon, there's limited scholarly research focused on the nuanced experiences of consultants working in developing countries. So right off the bat, we are being told that, yes, there are a lot of studies about consultants in more developed contexts. But if you check on Google Scholar, you will not find that much information as at 2023 when this was done. The specific challenges from navigating diverse cultural landscapes to infrastructural deficiencies are yet to be understood. So you hint at what the issue is. Then you come to the empirical studies. 1. In their study, Kirimani and Boam, 91. Why? Because this is old, but for this particular study, we have established that there's limited scholarly research. If there is no limited scholarly research, you cannot be using very old references. But once you've established that there is limited scholarly research, then you may use older references, even if it's not a classical theory. So in their study, Kirimani and Boam 91 observed a significant increase in the number of domestic consulting business operating in developing countries. Okay. But notwithstanding this, their level of services has not maintained commensurate progress, meaning that this has not been an up trajectory. They emphasize key obstacles, such as blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then from an international perspective, a study done in 2021 in Nepal showed challenges, blah, 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 blah. Their study focused on blah, 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 blah. Factors such as they are finding stress. Then, so you've done global studies. Now you're coming to Ghanaian context. The few studies in the Ghanaian context offer a fragmented picture. Aside Owusu Menu, Quagreen and Edwards' 2015 exploration of consulting, which was within scope of engineering and building construction, with specific reference to management consulting, which this study is the perspective the study is coming from, management. The existing study have been done in the context of private sector, focusing on MSMEs. For example, or for instance, Amponsa 2009 provides an analysis of operational challenges faced by SMEs in Kumasi. A study found, when you talk about it, Yeboah 2021 investigation in fashion in MSME in Kumasi. While these studies provide some insights, questions and gaps remain. There is limited understanding of consulting practice from the perspective of the practicing consultants in Ghana. And given this person's observation, it will be interesting to determine if the challenges still persist. Further, there are more questions regarding the dominance of development consulting in post-COVID-19 era in Ghana, especially considering Ghana's status as a middle-income country. So this is an example of how the language to use to build your problem statement. Problem statements will now give rise to general objectives, specific objectives. You can see that they are numbered 1, 2, 3, not I. You can see the language used. The specific objectives are 2. The 2 is here so that you don't start every sentence to identify, to explore, to examine. No, that is poor form. So the 2 is here at the top so that it can carry the rest over here. I have seen people who have done 2 in the groups. I didn't say anything because I hadn't told you. Now I have told you. So under specific objectives, you write the specific objectives are 2. Then you number it 1, identify, 2, explore, 3, examine, 4, assess, in that order. Your research questions must follow. They must be a mirror of the objectives. Then significance comes. I've already taught you how to write significance. So we are chapter 2. As I told you, chapter 2 starts with an introduction, then the conceptual review. Now, if you check your notes, you see that I indicated that in writing the conceptual review, you should let us have the historical development of the words, as well as the other route or approach you could use is a thematic approach. So this conceptual review uses themes. So you can see a subheader here, management consulting as an academic field. And in the narrative, you see it's termed. So when you see termed, it also means it's defined as a business world doctorate. It started in 19th century. So this is history. It is often defined as, you see it here. And then where the definition is coming from is indicated. Hello, baby. So you see the evolution from the 19th century to the 1800s to post-war times. So there's a historical narration provided. Yes, Clue. Please, your hand is up. You can ask your question. Yes, Clue, you raised your hand. You can ask your question.
Please, sorry.
Okay. And so you trace the evolution of the key terms and how it's been used and in which area it has been used. You see another theme used here, managing consulting in developing countries, because from the problem statement, we talked about how we have a lot of literature on management consulting elsewhere, but not in developing context. So this is acceptable. Looking at its origins, which countries we mean by developing countries. So we define where the developing countries are. They are saying they are Asia, Pacific, Latin America, Africa, Central and Eastern Europe. However, few studies charting the rise of consultancy in developing countries borrow from developed contexts. In some texts, the evolution of management consulting in developing countries has been linked to foreign aid, technical aid, development assistance, reference indicated. So you look at the literature and what it is saying. And this activity was very easy because the table was done. And so you know exactly who to cite for which points you are making. And then if you look at the objectives, you see that the objective hints at cultural, political, and ethical issues as challenges. So there's a theme here from that perspective. Now, the theoretical review follows the conceptual review. And in this instance, institutional theory is one of the theories. And of course, we talk about the history of the theory to early sociologists, Emil Durkheim, 1984. We look at more contemporary understanding of it from the 20th century, blah, 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 which authors have done work on it, how they have applied it. So applicability of institutional theory is broad and diverse. It's used to study organizational behaviors, and now it serves in other domains. For example, in economics, the theory talks about this, blah, blah, blah. And then institutional theory as a lens to study management consulting. So you can talk about when we started using this theory to study management, because we've established that it did not start as a management theory. It started as a sociology theory. Resource-based view, same thing for that. At master's level, we want to see critique of the theories. This is undergrad, so we can forgive them. Hofstede cultural dimensions is a framework, so you can see that it's called dimensions. It's not called theory, but it's a framework. So you can talk about that, where it comes from, how it got started, and how it's been used. Then empirical review. In the empirical review, we are interested in methodology, findings, etc. So you can see in this mixed method, Mensah. This is the same Mensah 2009 we mentioned in chapter 1, who did his work in Kumasi around SMEs. Now we have specified the number of MSMEs. He used 50. He did quota and purposive sampling. He used questionnaires, interviews, and observations. He found. So the whole work must have alignment from beginning to end. What I noticed with a lot of students, they use any reference Any reference, they just Google the reference, put it there. And then you don't know anything about that reference again. That's not how we do research. That is not how we do research. Also, many Green and Edwards 2015. They were mentioned in the problem statement. Now we are getting details here. They use mixed methods also. They identified 14 barriers. They used snowball sampling, convenience sampling, structured survey. 70, that is their sample size. Blah, 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 blah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this sample has been there since the beginning of the semester. If you have studied it, good for you. If you have not studied it, go and download it and study how it has been done. Conceptual framework is the last. So, you need to tell us how you think all the things you've discussed previously are linked based on your objectives. After you do that discussion, you give us a drawing, but it must be based on the previous discussion. It cannot just surprise us. It should not drop from thin air. You can either adopt an already existing one, and at source you say adopted from. You can adapt, meaning that you take an existing one and you change some parts. You put adapted from, the person's name should be there. Or you can create one based on the different things we've discussed. This one is author's construct because it is based on all the things that have been discussed, and the person has put together their own framework. This is undergrad, so this is very basic. Chapter 3. So this is today's class. Now in the chapter 3, we are interested in the study area, where the study is going to happen, the exact location. So in this topic, it said Ghana. So you have to give us context of Ghana, history, geography, economy. If your study area is Abeka, after you give us the fact that Abeka is in Ghana, you have to give us all the details, including longitude and latitude, economic activities, population, any other issues as pertaining to the topic you are doing that is relevant for Abeka. It should come in the study area. The next section is the research approach and design. So in the research approach and design, you have to tell us which approach, is it quali, quanti, or mixed? Justify it based on existing studies, why you are choosing whichever approach. And then tell us how, like the details of how you intend to execute that research approach. Then you need to talk about population and sampling. In this particular study, there was no database to know the population of management consultants in Ghana, but there was a suggestion of 416 registered people. This is the population. The population is the universe of all possible people that can be given questionnaires or interviewed to get data for your work. So you let us know the total population. And based on the population, you need to tell us what sample you are taking out of this population. Now, there must be representative sample, meaning that the sample must be such that they should represent the people who actually do not get the opportunity to be part of the study. So in this particular instance, there are 416 population. The rule of thumb is that if it's a population less than 1,000, 10%, so either 10% or more. So the minimum is 10%. 10% of that total population is a good our appropriate sample size. So 40 was considered to be 10%. And so we knew that, okay, out of the 460, if you were able to get 40 respondents, that is a good number. Now, how do we arrive at the individuals? If you are using quantitative research, you can use simple random sampling. There are many types of sampling techniques under quantitative. The basic one is simple random sampling. We have others like multi-stage, multi-phase. I'll give you, there's a handout I have. I don't know, I think it's already on the platform. Let me check. Yes, so I have videos on the platform about what is a representative sample. And that video is very, very extensive. It talks about the different sampling techniques. So right now, the simplest one for quanti is called simple random sampling. So put that somewhere, write it somewhere. You can watch the video to learn about the rest. In sampling, we want to avoid bias of any kind. So it is very important that you pay attention to the sampling technique that you are going to use. If you are using qualitative allows you, for example, to use your subjective understanding to select your sample. Quanti will not allow, but quali will allow. So I can do judgment sampling. I can do quota sampling. I can use purposive sampling technique, meaning that I know that, for example, I'm doing a study, I'm looking at risky behaviors among prostitutes in Ahuju Kumasi. If I use simple random sampling, which is random, and let me explain how you can use simple random sampling. If you watch the video, you get this more. I can use the fishbowl method. So under simple random sampling, you can use what we call the fishbowl method or the lottery method. I need 40 people. I have a set or a room of 416 people. So what I will do is that I will write 10. I'll write yes, 40 on small sheets of paper and fold it. And then what is 416 minus 40? 416 minus 40. Whatever that number is, I'll write no. So I have 376 sheets of paper written with no. I folded them. Nobody knows which one is no, which one is yes. And I have 40 of them. I have yes, and those 40. So I'll find a bowl or a hat. I'll put all my papers inside and I'll ask the respondents to come and pick. Everybody should just pick one piece of paper. All those who pick no, they are not part of the study. All those who pick yes, they are part of the study. That is a way you can do simple random sampling. It is simple because it's very, of course you can hear it from the narration, it's simple, straight to the point. And it is random. I do not use my eyes to choose who will be part of the study. I left it to chance. So that is how you can use fishbowl method or lottery method in simple random sampling to get your sample after you have determined what the sample size should be. But if I'm doing qualitative study, I need a specific quality among the populace. So if I leave it to chance, I might not get the people with the characteristics I am looking for. So it is better that I use my eyes to identify the people I want. So if I'm looking at risky behaviors among prostitutes in Ahojo, I need to go to where the prostitutes are. And I need to find, be in their space. People who are confirmed to be prostitutes. If I go and stand at Ahojo, and randomly talk to people in Ahojo, the chances are that they will not be the people I'm looking for. So I can use my judgment. I can use snowball as another qualitative sampling technique. In snowball sampling, what happens is that maybe I only know one prostitute in the whole of Ahojo. I talk to this prostitute or sex worker, but let me use the term sex worker. So I talk to this one sex worker. She's called Amma. I need 40 sex workers. So after I've spoken to Amma, I ask her, Amma, do you have any friends who are also in your line of business who wouldn't mind talking to me about your work and the challenges you are doing? And she said, oh yes, I have two friends, Akosia and Abena. So she gives you their numbers. So you call them. Then you talk to them. Abena too refers you to 3 other people. Akosia refers you to 1 other person. So you use the participants to identify other potential participants. That is snowballing. So those who have been to the West, when you are making a snowman, you can make a small one, and then as you roll it around in more snow, you see that it becomes bigger and bigger. This is the analogy behind the term snowball. So that is for qualitative. So you talk about the population size with reference. You should know the total number. Now, what happens when you don't know the actual number? You must have some estimate based on some record. Even if it's not official, there will be some record somewhere that you use. It's very rare to come and say that the population is completely unknown. It is very rare. But where those cases exist, then you have to use for qualitative like this. You can use, because for qualitative, we normally use it for sensitive populations, like for example, sex workers. It's a very sensitive taboo topic. So, and I know Ghana AIDS Commission and some other agencies might have some databases, but they might not have a completed national one. So after consulting the existing databases, if you still find that it's very difficult to determine the population so that you can calculate your sample size, then you can use what we call point of saturation as your point of determining when to stop collecting data. So the idea behind the point of saturation is that you collect the data until the data starts to look the same or it starts to repeat itself. So let's say that I have determined informally that I need 40 participants, 40 sex workers to interview for my qualitative study. And after I talk to the 10th person, I realize that the information she's giving me is the same as the information the 11th person is giving me. 12th person, same information. 13th person, 14th person. By the time I get to the 15th person, if that person also gives me the same exact information that the last 5 people have given me, then I can decide to stop data collection at that point and use the justification that the data had reached the point of saturation because the information is looking the same, even though you are talking to different participants. So for a qualitative study, for a population that is unknown, you can use the point of saturation as the stopping point for data collection. So that is that. There's more on data population and sampling, which will be in a handout I will send to you. There's also more information in the video on the LMS. Now, the next section you need to discuss is the sources of data. Primary source data is data that is obtained directly from respondents. So most of the studies that you are doing now, where you are collecting data, it's primary. Literature review does not constitute secondary data. Please, let's all say it. Literature review does not constitute secondary data. Everybody say it.
Literature review does not
Does not
constitute
constitute
primary
secondary data.
Data.
What this sentence means to the whole class. Who can explain it? What am I trying to teach you? What is literature review? We just did literature review. Please, what is literature review? Nobody in the class knows what literature review is.
Madam, please, it's previous writings or findings about the topic or the area of study you want to undertake your research on.
Thank you very much. And I'm saying that when you consult literature, it does not mean that you have used secondary data. Do we understand what I mean by it does not constitute secondary data? If I've told you what primary data is, what will secondary data be? What will secondary data be? You are a master student, so I assume that most of you have done some sort of thesis before in your life. So when you talk about primary data, I have just explained it. So what will secondary data constitute?
Madam, so the secondary data is basically those data that someone has already generated and you are just relying on to do your work. So basically, it's not a fresh data you've generated by yourself, but someone's data available somewhere that you are falling on to do your work.
Thank you very much. So secondary data, like Auditor General's report, if you run analysis on that, those in finance, those in accounting, economics, you are people who normally rely on secondary data. You might run maybe panel analysis on a database that has been collected for the last 10 years. You can run, that could be your entire research work, right? People in finance, people in accounting, people in economics. When you rely on already collected data or data in databases, that is when you say you are using secondary data. But when you are using fresh data that you yourself have collected, it is called primary source data. I hope that distinction is clear, because what happens is that because students like to copy, we just go and copy it and bring it to me. And it makes me upset because I take my time to teach you that primary data is data that you are collecting yourself. So if your thesis is based on data you collected yourself, it's called primary source data. But because you are copying blindly, you will copy, because this mistake, most people make it. That the data depends on primary and secondary data. Primary data from respondent and secondary data from reports, articles, etc. Meanwhile, they are talking about literature review. This is why I'm saying literature review does not constitute primary, does not constitute secondary data. If you are not running analysis on data you have collected from somebody, then you are not using secondary data. I hope it is crystal clear.
Yes.
Yes,
So those in economics, finance, accounting. Your research slightly should differ from those in management, HR, marketing. Because for you, your work should usually run based on secondary data, means databases. The rules I've discussed so far apply, but when it comes to the source of data and the analysis, yours differs at that junction. You must be very particular about the kind of topics you choose. So that I don't choose topics that look like management topics. Okay. Can management and other people use secondary data? Yes. But normally, economics, finance, and accounting, most of your research work must run analysis based on data sets, like huge volumes of data. That is a mark of good work. Under your sources of data, you talk about whether you are using manual or electronic means. You talk about the types of questions you have. You talk about pilot testing if you did it. Pilot testing means that when you put your questionnaires together or your interview questions together or your observation, whatever data collection tool you are using, you must go and test it in a similar population, not the same population, a similar population. So let's say I'm going to do a study amongst sex workers in Ahujo. I should identify another place where the characteristics of population I'm interested in, they are similar to the people in Ahujo, but in a different part of Ghana or Kumasi. I go and test my data collection tool. In this case, it's an interview schedule. I use it and see where there are problems with my questions, which questions are confusing, etc. It is very important to do pilot testing. A lot of students will create a questionnaire or interview guide in English. Then they will go to the field. The people speak Hausa. They have not pilot tested their instrument, so they don't even know how to translate the English words into Hausa or to Ga or to even Chi. Then they will be there. Then they will go and collect very useless data, which cannot give you any results. So it is always a good idea to pilot test your instruments, to know the circumstances on the field, the practicalities on the field. So when you are collecting the data, you collect good data. And then you collect data that you can actually run, because that is also here. All right. Then you need to talk about your data collection instruments themselves. So questionnaire, if you are using questionnaire, justify your choice of questionnaire. You can talk about the fact that previous studies such as Odum, this person and that person, they use questionnaires. If you do a good job of your literature review, you might even get already established questionnaires. You can just adapt, meaning that you copy it and you change some parts and you just give credit to that person. It is good to use already established questionnaires or questions for your interview, because in research, we say that it improves your validity. Using an instrument that has been tested over time is good for ensuring validity, meaning that multiple people have used it for the kind of study you are going to do, and they have said that it's a good way of getting your data. It's better to use already established instruments than to go and sit in your room and think of questions yourself. If you do your literature review very well, you come across many questions in the appendix of other people's work that you can just adapt and use for your own work. In the data collection instruments section, as you can see here, for example, for this particular work, it was a Google link, Google questionnaire. The link is even there. The period of data collection should be stated. Any challenges that were encountered should also be talked about. And then your analysis. You have to provide details. What software did you use? Which part of the software did you use to do what kind of computation, etc., etc. Then ethical considerations is the last part. So that is chapter 3. So now I'll stop here. You know what is expected of chapter 3. You know what is expected of chapter 2. I want you to go to the LMS for the next 30 minutes. On the LMS, there are videos on research design, population and sampling, and what is a representative sample. You are going to watch these videos and make your notes, and we'll come back and discuss them. Are we okay?
Please, we are okay.
Yes, madam.
If you go to LMS, it is clear. Under week 4, if you click on week 4, research design, population, representative sampling, 1, 2, 3. Watch it, make your notes. You come back, if you have questions, you ask. After we do that, we go to the samples of the data collection tools, which is also already there for you. Okay. So let's work and come back. Yeah, hello everyone. I'm putting questions in the chat, so make sure you can answer these questions in the chat. I've typed questions in the chat. Kindly check and answer them based on the videos you are watching. Thank you. Okay. Hello. So I've seen some of your answers. We need to answer all 6 questions, okay? Hello? So I've indicated that create a Word document. And then you put your answers there, you put your notes there. So you can always refer to it. Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
Doc.
Okay.
Madam.
In
Yes,
about
please.
20 minutes, we will have a short discussion, after which we'll have a quiz based on what you've done so far. So please, if we are not paying attention, let us endeavor to pay attention. We'll use a Socrative app to do the quiz, okay? I will send the link when it's time. Thank you very much.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Is the quiz going to be based on what we have done today or from the previous lectures we've had?
From previous till now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. But you have more from today's class, so thank you. Bye. Okay, so I believe by now everybody has had a chance to watch the three videos. I'll just go over, lead a discussion on the three videos that you've seen so far. So we already know what a sample is. We know that it's taken from a population. And from the videos, who can tell me the two main types of sampling that we have?
I have the probability and the non-probability.
Okay, so what's the difference between the two?
Who made this? Who made this? Oh,
The
you guys,
probability
pardon.
concerns itself with chances, the chances that an element within the population will be selected, while the non-probability does not have anything to do with chances. Rather, it concerns itself with convenience and the judgment of the researcher.
Okay, any other person to tell me the difference between probability and non-probability? Another
Madam,
person? Yes.
the probability sample helps you to ensure that your sample is representative and unbiased.
Okay. So it allows for generalizability, meaning that it is more scientific and it helps you to defend and justify the people that you go and collect data from. And the key idea is that every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. So which of the approaches will prefer probability sampling?
Quantitative.
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 And for non-probability, it goes with which one?
Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Okay. So the main idea is randomness or chance, not personal choice. It is more scientific and it is useful because it reduces bias, improves generalizability, meaning that by the time you get to chapter 5, whatever you would have found, if you use quantitative probability sampling technique, your findings will be generalizable to the entire population. So, given the example that I showed you this morning, this afternoon, 40 out of 116. If we truly did probability sampling technique, those 40 people, they should have the same characteristics and features as the 300 plus people that were not part of the study. And our findings should be applicable. That's what we mean by generalized to the whole population. Our findings from the 40 will be applicable to the 320 something students or people who were not taken to be part of the study. Okay, that is what we mean by generalizability and having a representative sample. I hope we all understand.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Doc.
Now, what are the types of probability sampling techniques? Like, what are the tools, the types of probability sampling that you can do? I've already told you about SRS, which is simple random. What are the others?
Systematic sample,
Okay.
stratified, and
Wait.
cluster.
Okay. So they're systematic, no? How do you do it? How will you do systematic? You know that you need 40 out of 460. How will you use systematic sampling to get your 40?
You select sample completely at random from the whole population.
Systematic. How would you do systematic sampling?
All right,
every nth member is selected.
Every nth member. So you determine a random start point. You can decide that every fifth, so the nth stands for a number. It can be every fifth, it can be every second, it can be every third, it can be every 10th. So you can decide that maybe every 10th person qualifies. So you can list the numbers 1 to 416. If you say where your n is maybe 5, so every 5th person becomes part of the study. So it means that the first person will be number 5. The next person will be number 10 because that is the 5th person after 5. The next person will be which number?
11.
Number
15.
15.
15.
The next person should have which number?
20.
20.
20.
The next person, like that.
25th.
So you get the 40 you are looking for. So your n will be determined by the total sample population and the sample size you are looking to get. Does it make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, though.
Yes, madam.
Please.
So that is systematic. And the system is what? The nth. The nth person from a list. Okay. Now we have stratified. What is stratified?
Madam, stratified, you divide the population into subgroups and draw a random sample from each subgroup.
Very good. So you have to create a subgroup which is called a strata. So for example, you are doing a study that you are collecting data from rural and urban areas. So rural or urban can become your subgroups. Now from each of the subgroups, you determine how many you need from each group. So let's say that still using 416 as a total population. You have determined by 10% rule that you need 40. But you know that you have rural and you have urban. So let's say that there are 200 rural and 216 urban. So that means that the urban should have even more people. That's one thing. You know that if you use your random sample, your simple random sample well, you take sample from urban group, sample from the rural group. But because you know that we have 216 people, 260 people in the urban group, you would expect that you have more from the urban group. Does it make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
Does
madam.
it make sense? So
Yes,
in
madam.
stratified sampling, first thing to do is to divide into the strata or the subgroup. In the example I'm giving you, there are 2, a rural group and an urban group. The groups can be plenty. It depends on the study you are doing. And then after you divided them, then you use a simple random sampling to now select from each of the groups. So 200 and 216, we know that we need 40 in total, right? So how many should we take from the rural? How many should we take from the urban to make 40? Do proportion.
2020.
If you do 2020, won't you have a lopsided
It should be
because
1525.
Thank you very much. Ratio and proportion. Does it make sense to everybody?
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
please.
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
please.
Okay. So in stratified sampling, you first divide into the strata, which is a subgroup, and then apply simple random sampling to collect from each of the strata you have identified. Okay. Cluster.
Madam, you
Cluster.
divide
Can we say it's the
let's say like a geographical area, and then you randomly select some of them for a sample.
Like La did for Tupong cluster of schools. If you forget, remember that.
regions and departments?
From natural occurrences.
So the first thing is to determine your clusters, and then after that you apply SRS to take the individual samples from each cluster. So we've seen about probability sampling, and it is useful when the population is known, which is why it lends itself easily to quantitative And it is used when you want to generalize your findings, when you want to have a representative sample. In fact, we aim for representativeness. It's a good mark. But quantitative studies, it is a rule that your findings should be able to be generalized. So if you do your quantitative work wrongly, especially at this point, we'll throw your work away and say that your conclusions are not valid. Okay, now let's come to non-probability. In non-probability, we are using our judgment, availability, and convenience to arrive at our sample. And we know that the issue here is that even though it's faster and easier, it is not representative, and therefore your findings will not be generalizable. Okay? Because it's not based on randomness or chance. What are the types of non-probability sampling?
Convenience sampling.
Quota
That's
sampling.
sampling.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Quota
judgmental
sampling.
quota, and then the snowball. Snowball sampling. Snowball. Convenience sampling.
Very good. So now I believe that we know the difference between the two. We know when to use what. We know the issue about representativeness and generalization. And also bias.
Yes.
Yes. Because bias will mean that your sample is not representative. Okay. So any questions before I move on to the next? Any questions?
Madam, please, I wanted to ask, the questions in the chat box, how do we submit it? Because some of us, we cannot see the questions again. We were answering, now it's missing.
Hey, I said take a Word document and then, what do you call it? Answer in the Word document.
Okay.
It's for your own notes, okay?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. So let us go to. Do you see the LMS?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So you see that
Yes, Doc.
there's another video on scales of measurement, nominal, ordinal, interval ratio. It is
Yes,
very
please.
easy to understand, but you do that on your own time. I'm going to skip to samples, questionnaire, sample interview guide for you to see how your data collection instrument should look like. So that's the next thing I'm going to project for you. Okay, so your questionnaire must have a very structured and professional look. When people, whether it's online like Google Forms or whether it is manual, it should have the following features. The name of the institution should be there, the department should be there. There should be an introduction, which is here. So somebody should read this one for us.
Dear respondents, this information is being solicited in connection with an undergraduate degree in business administration on the topic assessing customer satisfaction with B2C platforms. The questionnaire takes 10 minutes to complete. Your participation is highly appreciated and you are assured of absolute confidentiality and anonymity. Please feel at ease to provide all information, whether negative or positive. Should you have any queries, please contact MXXYZ on 020XXXXX.
Okay, so the information here should be your topic. We should know what topic you are dealing with. We should know approximately how many minutes it's going to take the respondents. We should also talk about ethics, which is about, in this case, confidentiality. And then if they have questions, they should have a place where they can get clarification. These elements must be there for, questionnaire, a well-structured questionnaire. After that, the first section we deal with is the social demographic characteristics. And we mean gender, age, occupation, marital status, highest education, and any other parameter which is important for the work. So for example, if your work is economics based or incomes are important, then income should be here. If your work is looking at maybe social media use by businesses, the types of social media platforms you have should be part of the social demographics. If the work is looking at number of children or household size, this is an important demographic feature. It should be there. So what am I saying? You will update the social demographic section based on the research you are doing. You can see that in this particular example, age is open-ended, meaning there is no option. But it's better for questionnaires to always provide options for people to choose from. See, so if I know that my study is among university students, I can guess that the youngest might be, and I'm doing my study among level 300 students, I can guess that the youngest might be, let's say, 20 years, or let's say even 19. So you can have 19, use a 5-year gap. Now, whatever gap you use, it must be consistent. So if I'm using 5 years, let's say I'm using 20 years. So I can have the first one below 20 as option 1. The next option can be 20 to 25. B, it should be 26 to 26 plus 5 is what? 31. Yes. 31, 5 years plus, if you add the 5 years gaps, it should be 32 to 37. The gap must be consistent. You should not have age and then the options will say maybe less than 20 years. Then you have 21 to 23. Then the next one you have 24 to 28. And the next one you have maybe 28 to 30. We don't do it like that. The age gap must be what? Consistent. Please, do we understand?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, madam.
So you will now go to your substantive questionnaire. Now, use the rule of thumb. Each specific objective becomes a heading. Each specific objective becomes a heading. Now, under each specific objective, you need at least 5 strong questions. So in this study, this was done by my undergraduate students many, many years ago. Many years ago. This is about, I want to say 6 years, Godfred and his people. And I remember them and I always use their work as an example because even though they were undergrads, the boys really worked hard. They really, really worked hard. This is when online commerce had taken off and Kiku had just come to Ghana. So these were their specific objectives. So you can see it is bold. Look at the English. You can see that it is what? A specific objective. So the specific objectives become the sub-themes. So that was objective 1. And I think they're undergrads, so I think they just had 2 objectives. And this is objective 2, perception of service quality. And so you can see how they have neatly done this. Very nice. And it's not just nice aesthetically because of how they have arranged things. They use the literature. So they could come up with very good options for people to choose from. So for example, under this specific objective of examining online shopping, how often do you shop per month? You see that the gaps are consistent. The gap 1 to 3, 4 to 8. And this is coming from literature. the questions they used was informed by the literature. Because you see, tell us the reason why you choose. Most students will make it open-ended. Because literature had told them that price, quality, time and distance, variety, and people's adventurous spirits are some of the factors. They provided these. And then, of course, other, please specify. So the bias, look at all the options they have for people to choose from. This is the mark of a good questionnaire. You should have research-informed options for people to choose from. And these boys really did the work. They used the Likert scale here for this specific objective. The Likert scale, Likert, it tries to measure people's satisfaction levels of something, right? And so they said, these are the criteria: price, quality, variety, supply, customization, website design, payment, privacy, security, customer service. So all these options that they have. And they put it in a neat table for people to choose their levels of satisfaction or dissatisfaction with all these. And these parameters all come from the literature. All of them came from literature. They didn't guess. They read about it and used the relevant ones. And you can see that the questionnaire is just 4 pages. It is not a lot. People don't have time. So your questions are plenty. You are shooting in the dark because you don't know what the literature says. Your questionnaire will not be strong. So this questionnaire is a very good example of a strong questionnaire. It is on the online platform. This is what I expect when this is the level, the basic level of what is expected. Have more closed-ended questions with options that make sense and come from the literature so that people can choose. Any question about questionnaire? Any questions about questionnaires?
Hello, Madam.
Oh.
Yeah, Mas, you made mention of the fact that the questionnaires must be in accordance of the specific objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to go beyond the specific objectives, or it always has to be tailored to the specific objectives? Thank you.
So my question to you is, the extra questions, what objective will you be using to answer? Like, what will you use that information for? The extra questions you want to ask.
Okay, Madam, but in the recommendation section, I don't know if possible, you could even include it. It's a question I'm asking, though.
No, I'm curious. I want to understand why you want extra questions, because the idea is behind your questionnaire is that you should ask questions that will help you directly answer your objectives. So
Okay.
maybe I don't understand your question well. That's why I'm asking what you want to use the extra information for. Like, what kind of questions are you asking them for, which is not relevant to your objectives, but you are just asking? Like, for what exactly? Do you understand?
Okay, yeah, I get you. Since you made mention of the fact that the questions ought to come from the specific objectives, I was also thinking, does it mean entirely that the questions must come from the specific objectives? So it's close end, aside that no other questions in the questionnaire. And I was also thinking perhaps the recommendation of aspects, like if something of that sort could be included.
Okay, I still don't get your question, but what I can say is that people don't have time to answer questions. You want to economize your questionnaires. You want to get the best out of people who are very busy and are not normally motivated to answer. So if the question you're asking them has no bearing on the specific objectives for which you are doing the work, because the entire work is resting on your specific objectives. So if it's not going to answer your specific objectives that you have set out for yourself, I don't see why you should ask those questions. Of course, if you look at the sample, there's a question that says, is there anything you'd like to tell us for which we have not asked? This question is there. So if there's something that we probably might have missed, we expect that people will put their answers here. And this also, this is an open-ended question within a questionnaire. So I don't know if your question is answered. Monsieur, is your question answered?
It is, madam. Thank you.
Okay. So this sample questionnaire I've given you, it can be converted into a digital format, which I strongly encourage because it makes everybody's life very easy. So, yeah, this is a form. This is a digital one. Personally, I like to put images in my digital questionnaires, images that relate to the topic I am dealing with. So you can see when any question is starred, it is a required question. If it's not starred, it is not required. So all you need is a Google account to be able to access Google Forms to create your questionnaire. It's very easy to use. And as I said, you use your your specific objectives to determine what questions should be. And I also mentioned that for each specific objective, you should have at least 5 questions, 5 strong questions for each specific objectives, and use the literature to inform the options that you give people so that you have as many closed-ended options for people to choose from. Why is that? Because when it comes to analysis, it is cooked for you. If you use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, as the data is being collected, it is being analyzed to some degree. So for example, for this data set, I can already tell that I have more males than females. The percentages are indicated, the numbers are indicated. I can copy this and send it to my work, copy and paste into my work. For this, they typed it themselves, so you can see. They also type these into themselves, but the one that they choose, it gives you a very clean rendition of the data. You can easily tell which are the biggest numbers, etc. from this. How many business support programs have you participated in? And most of them, which is 52%, have done just one. The next highest is 3. It's 5 businesses out of 40. Which programs have you participated in? And the most seems to have done the Ghana Innovation Hub, followed by Orange Corners. So when you have open and closed-ended questions, it makes your life very easy, especially when it comes to how the data is rendered. You can also export the data into Microsoft Excel and run your analysis from here. All you have to do is click View in Sheets. When you click View in Sheets, you can see the data in Excel. This is Google Sheets. You can download it as an Excel file. You can download it as open document, PDF, whatever. And then you can run more analysis. You can export it into SPSS or any other data analysis tool and do run your data more if you want to. So this is a sample questionnaire. Any questions about questionnaires, both digital and analog?
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Please, with a closed-ended question like age, what happens if the respondent is unable to tell you his or her age?
Well, that's why I give them ranges so they should be able to guess their own age range. You are not asking, because the age, it is a range that is given. So if you are collecting the data manually, you can look at them, ask them a few questions about some major experiences in life which tally to certain significant dates. For example, how old do they think they were when Rawlings was president? When Wk4 was president? Those kinds of things. But if it's a digital one, then we'll have to pray that they remember. But that's why you do ranges. You don't write specific ages. Any other question? Any other question? Okay, so we'll go to interview guide. So while questionnaires are for quantitative research, qualitative research will require you to use tools such as interview, and the tool is called the interview guide. So this is an interview guide. Another name for it is an interview schedule. Of course, the name of the institution, faculty, department, what it is, and the topic. Then the introduction, similar to the one we just saw for the questionnaire. Qualitative people, we use the word participant. Quantitative people, we use respondent. So I've just made that change over here. We should ask permission explicitly to record. If they indicate yes, you can go ahead. If they indicate no, then you just have to rely on writing notes throughout the interview. Now for this study, the study sought to understand how locals interact with tourists in what we call volunteer tourism, which is a type of tourism where the visitors stay in the communities and do humanitarian projects whilst visiting the country. So they are not the typical tourists who go to the beach the whole time and chill and relax. No. So that is the premise for this particular interview guide. Now, this particular interview guide was for the residents. The location for the study was Asebu in the central region. So you can see in-depth interview guide for residents. And to prove that somebody is a resident or not, there was a filter question. This is an example of a filter question. In research, a filter question is a question we use to determine who should be part of a study. Because there are some studies, if you don't ask the question at the beginning, you get to the middle and realize that the person you are talking to or the person you are giving the questionnaire to doesn't have any clue about what you are talking about. So for this study, we needed to make sure that before we even start the interview, we were talking to the people who were actually from the town. They were born there. They've lived all their life there. They are considered citizens of that particular town. They are native to that town. It was an important requirement for this study. If you are doing a study to look at traders, and these are traders who must be cross-border traders, which is a requirement for the work. So we are looking at experiences of cross-border traders along Ghana's borders. If you go to the market and you talk to any market person, the chances are that they might be traders, but not cross-border traders. So the wise thing to do is to have a filter question at the beginning before you even start whatever data collection you are going to do. Mepacho, me who say what on to so I would dra. Ojuma we ni or say I mejuma me ye. Pacho wo kokwan so. O cross Ghana border bi akọ Togo ana Elubu ana akọ Paga ana akọ Burkina. Akọfa onioma na na woto Cape here or see o. We track kwan. We akọ Abidjan akọfa onioma. Then you know that this person qualifies before you start asking them the questions. Filter questions. Please, we understand.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
ma'am.
So, in this particular study, proof of residency is a filter question. So we ask them, were you born here in this town of Asebu? Now you see that some questions are in italics. These are called probing questions. Let's say it's probing.
Probing.
Probing
Probing.
questions.
Probing questions.
Probing questions.
Probing question.
So the probing question is a follow-up question that we'll put there so that in case the person misunderstands us, gets confused, or we think that to help clarify the question, we'll ask as a follow-up. So for example, if I ask somebody, were you born in Asebu? And then they are like, they are looking at you, they are not really answering, like, oh, how long have you been here? Were you born here? Did your mother give birth to you in the hospital here? They'll say, Debbie, me buy a name 15. Me orphan and me buy her. Sisi a wedding fees and sisi a me 40. Oh, into what na? And fans say and say how many years? Like 30 years. Or say yes, that person will qualify. Even though they were not born there, the person has ties, family ties, has been there for at least 15 years. So I can allow this person to answer questions. If you're asking this question, they say, oh, me wahana and kind of me ba crache. Ba about 15 years ni. Me be sa me mami. Ana me be ye. Ana me twem keke. Me free had ye, but me maintain hada. Then that person cannot tell me answer the rest of my questions. So I'll thank them for their time and move on to the next question. So you must understand your study, understand what is required, and you must read the literature. If you don't read the literature, some of these things you not even know. Then you go and collect trash data, which cannot give us any reasonable analysis. So that is for probing. Now, each of these questions in bold, these are specific objectives. And like I said, for each specific objective, you should have at least some 5 strong questions. And for qualitative, you must have probing questions. I've already explained what the probing questions are. So anytime you see bold, this is a what? A specific objective. And then each specific objective should have sub-questions. So these are examples of questions and probing questions that you should have. Now, you can see that the social demographic characteristics are the last part. Qualitative interviews are necessarily face-to-face, either in person or online via Zoom or any other video conferencing, which presupposes that 80% or 90% of the time, you know whether the person is a male or a female. So you just tick on your score, your sheet, your interview guide sheet, or in your notebook that participant A. You don't write people's names, that's the other thing. Don't write people's names because you have indicated that the study is anonymous, confidentiality, blah, blah, blah. So you don't ask people's names. And if they offer their names, you say, please, don't tell me your name. Don't tell me, don't give me any identifying features. Students will say, oh, okay, then in their report, they write the director of Nestle Ghana Limited indicated that because they think that they didn't write the person's name. If somebody is smart and wants to figure out who it is, all you have to do is check the time the data was collected and check who was director at the time. So it still means that you are not obeying the rules of assuring confidentiality and protecting people's identity. So we use alphabet or pseudonyms. A pseudonym is a false name. If you want to use names, use pseudonyms. But do not use any identifying character. That will let us know that Mr. So and so is the one who said this, so that people go and attack him or people are going to attack her. Please, do we understand ethics of research?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Yes, madam.
Now you are interviewing somebody. The person is obviously female. And because it's on your list, you then ask. And I've seen, no, I'm not saying this because I have dreamt about it. Students have actually sent me interview recordings where they know they are talking to a male, but because it's written, they say, please, what is your gender? And the participant said, but don't you know that I'm a man? I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. Just because it's written there doesn't mean that you can't tell a person, please, we are in Ghana in 2026. The person you are interviewing, you can see them. They are male, female. So just indicate. Don't go asking questions that have already been answered. In interviewing, you must pay attention.
But madam,
Sometimes, let
I
me
think
finish.
gender.
Let me finish. Sometimes they will answer question 3 whilst talking about question 1. Just because question 3 is there doesn't mean that by force, when you get there, you repeat the question. This is why you must pay rapt attention to the interview and listen to what the person is saying and write notes. If they happen to answer a question ahead of time, do not repeat the question. It is very annoying and very frustrating to the respondents. Yes, Mr. Oscar. The one who wanted to interject, please go ahead now. Somebody was interjecting. I asked them to let me finish. I have finished, so you can say what you want to say. Okay, so he will not speak. So age, you ask them, you note it. Occupation, marital status. Again, all the relevant information you must indicate. Give me a second. All right, thank you very much. So I'm back. So like I was saying, what was I? I was talking about the social demographics. Don't ask obvious questions. Pay attention to what the participant is saying, so that you don't ask questions that have already been answered. And sometimes new things will come up that you didn't think about, but they will be mentioning it. So you can ask follow-up questions based on those things. And then the skill of a good interviewer is to let the participants do the talking. And to momoni ensure omunum. Don't bias their responses by leading them on. This is why you must use already validated questions as much as possible from the literature. This is why you must do pilot testing to make sure that your questions are clear, well phrased, and will actually get the information that you need. Where translation is going to be required, it is even more critical to do pilot testing before you actually do your actual data collection. So the last hour of the class will be used for our quiz. I'm going to send you the link to the quiz. Please confirm for me, today is our last class, not so? Or we have one more class next week?
We
we
have
have one more
two
class.
classes.
Two more.
Two classes.
Two more
more.
classes. Two more
Okay.
classes before.
Even better. So you have the sample. Go and look at chapter 4 and chapter 5. When we meet next week, we'll look at chapter 4 and chapter 5. Then it means that we have seen the 5 chapters that are required for the thesis. The groups, you are supposed to work on writing out your chapter 2 based on your literature review matrix. For most of you, I was not able to access your work because you didn't make it open. So the one I was able to access is what I used to teach the class today. So if your table is not well done, this is a golden opportunity for you to go and revise it. Okay, so let me share with you the link to Socrative. I'll share the links with the class rep as well, but I'm putting it in the chat. It's called Socrative Students. Socrative, like the philosopher Socrative. Socrative Students. The link is this. Now, when you click on it, you will see. Let me show the share. Yeah, what am I sharing? Let me stop. Share again. What is this thing? Okay. So when you click the link I sent you, this is what you should see. You should see room name. Now this is the room name. Mensah 1361. MENSH 1361. Mensah 1361. That is the room name. Now these are the rules. You can only use, you should use only one device to answer the questions. If you use multiple devices, you get a null score, meaning you get 0. Some students, they think they are smart, they'll use their phone and they'll use their laptop. It's automatic 0. Don't do that. Number 2, it is in your best interest to answer these questions by yourselves so that it gives me feedback on whether or not you understand what's going on. If you decide to cheat, I might not be able to catch you. But when you come to the exam or later in life, when you need to practice what you've been taught, to be you and your God, there's nothing I'll be able to do to help you. Number 3, the quiz have different questions mixed together. So if you're asking your friend, please know that they could be at question 1. Their question 1 could be your question 15 and vice versa. So you copy at your own peril. Number 3, and finally, use your full name as is in our books and your index number. Use your full name and your index number. Use your full name and your index number. Please use your full name and your index number. Are we okay?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
madam.
Yes, Doc.
So the time is 4:15.
But
I'm
some
about
of
to
us are
start.
not seeing the questions. So they say you have completed the current activity, waiting for the next activity to.
Yes, I'm now coming to launch it. I want to make sure everybody is there.
Okay.
So we are coming to start. I don't want to hear, madam, I wasn't there, my internet went off, my children were disturbing me, the thing was going. When the thing ends, it ends. So if you are not paying attention, you are Googling your answers. By the time you finish Googling the thing, the next question has come and it has gone. So when the question comes, you answer, you move on, you wait for the next question. I see there are over 100 students, but only 22 are in the classroom right now. The rest of the 80 plus students, where are they? There are only 28 students now on the Socrative app, 31. When I get to 50 per, I'll start. If you are late, the thing goes on. I will not take any excuse because I told you about 2 hours ago that I will be doing a test. There are now 38 students out of 100 and something students. 40 students. Okay, get to 50 per, I'll start. The rest of you, I don't know. Please know that I will not accept any excuses. 47 students.
Logging in.
Hello, Doc. Please, the link.
Okay, how do we log in? The link
Access
where?
the link.
Go to chat.
The chat, there is not like I can't get access to the old chat. My network went off.
Class rep, send the link and the code to your people.
No, please, the room name.
The room name.
Mensah 1361.
Mensah 1361.
Mensah 1361. The class rep, send me hi. There are now 77 people. I've sent the links to everybody, so I'm coming to start. The quiz has started. Enter with your full name and index number. When it's 5 o'clock, I will close it. So wherever it has reached, it will be closed at 5 o'clock.
Hello, madam. Please, what is the time given for the quiz?
By 5 o'clock, the thing will log out too.
All right, thanks.